Hello everybody, it is I, Sir Beardian, and once more we are on the hype train for C#. Let's get stuck right into it, shall we? We don't have a lot of time, and we need to got a lot of changes to cover. So, first up, system naming. In C# Aurora, you can optionally assign one of the new naming themes to a system. We talked about those in day 1, I believe. Any future exploration beyond that point will use the selected naming theme. This allows you to have different naming themes for different warp chains. The order of name selection for new systems will therefore be the actual system name for known stars, and the next name for naming theme associated with the system from which the exploring ship originated, if a theme is set, next name for racial system theme, and then system number plus system number. Yeah, righto. You can still rename systems directly and will be able to use text or select any name from any name theme. So, one of the more interesting things about Aurora VB6 is that all systems, as they're generated, use the Empire naming theme for the system. But what's interesting in how it selects it is that it just goes, generate new system, checklist for all the names in use, pick the next one down. So if you rename a system, the next system that you generate will be named basically that system that you just renamed, the name that was originally on. So this allows you to set different themes so that each individual chain, as you explore down the warp chain, can have its own theme. Nice little bit of quality of life there. Next, population capacity changes. Bit of a big change, this one. So first up, a new concept, population capacity, has been added to C# Aurora. This represents the maximum population that can be maintained on a simple body and is primarily determined by surface area. This is the total of all populations on the same body, not per population. The Earth's population is currently 7 billion. However, the rate of population growth peaked at 2.1% at 4 billion and has been dropping since then, now at about 1.2%, and is projected to reach close to zero around 11 billion. There is a link there to real-world population growth data. Therefore, the game is going to use 12 billion as the baseline max capacity for an Earth-sized planet and 4 billion at the point at which growth rates are affected. Growth will follow the normal rules for up to 1/3 of max capacity and then will fall off at a linear rate, hitting zero growth at max capacity, replicating the situation on Earth. The max capacity of a body will be equal to surface area divided by Earth surface area times 12 billion. Fairly straightforward there. There will also be some tech options to improve that capacity, particularly for smaller bodies. A planet can physically hold more people than the max capacity, but this will result in unrest due to overcrowding in the same way as insufficient infrastructure. Now, while 70% of Earth's surface is water, that plentiful water also improves living conditions. The majority of the world's population is less than 100 kilometers from the nearest coastline, after all. However, there does come a point when too much water will reduce the available living space. Therefore, once water covers more than 75% of the planet, capacity will drop at a linear rate, falling to 1% of normal capacity at 100% water. The 1% assumes a few small scattered islands or some form of colony floating on the surface. Tide-locked worlds, one side always facing the star, only have 20% of normal capacity after taking into account surface area and water. This is to simulate that the population will be living in a narrow band between the light and dark hemispheres of the planet. To compensate, these worlds also have an 80% reduction in the colony cost factor for temperature, as they are living in the temperate band. Regardless of the result of the above calculations, a body with gravity at or below the species minimum that is not a gas giant or a superjovian will always have a capacity of at least 50,000. The above rules result in the following population capacities, and we have here a table that you can see for yourself. There's also an edit as of January 21st. This is couple years ago now. Each species has a population density modifier. This is normally set to 1, but there is a small chance it can be set higher or lower for random species. Player created species can specify this density. So what does that mean for C#? Well, the simplest and obvious outcome of this particular change is that you can no longer have just a single massive colony that's sitting on Earth that you feed people into to just mass produce anything and everything you want. Now, 7 billion is a hell of a lot, but not every planet is going to be as big as Earth. And I don't know if the algorithm has changed for C#, but Aurora tends to have a hell of a lot of tidally locked planets. Like, have you ever taken a look at it? There are a lot of them. So having not a limited amount of water is also going to be a severe restriction. So while 7 billion is the baseline, well, 12 billion is the baseline, I fully expect that a lot, if not most, of the planets that you ever find are not going to have anywhere near the capacity of Earth. Although there's probably going to be a lot that have more. But this will definitely change how many people you can actually expect to have on planets. And if we have a look, Earth has a pop of 12 billion, but Mars only has 3.4. Ganymede has 2. So, yeah, the moon can only support 890 million. That's a lot of people, but it's still going to be a severe restriction that you will have to deal with and keep in mind. So, very, 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 very big change that is going to completely redesign how colonies are really handled. But we'll see how that actually plays out once we get our hands on it. Next on the list, we have new species attributes. Each species now has 4 new attributes, all of which default to 1, but have a low chance to be higher or lower. As we discussed before, population growth rate modifier, population density modifier, which affects max population capacity, infrastructure capacity, and orbital habitat capacity. Research rate modifier, which increases or decreases research rate, and production rate modifier, which affects factories, refineries, and shipbuilding. Player created species can have custom values set, and also note that this is a species level, not empire level, and empire modifiers to research and production are based on technology rather than innate ability. So this will add a little bit more difference in species. So it will hopefully promote conquering and capturing and having an integrated non-human population rather than just using them as serfs, really. Next, another really relatively big change, command and control roles. In C#, the commander of a ship will only apply half his bonus for crew training, survey, fighter operations, engineering, and tactical, the last 2 being new skills. However, additional officers can be assigned to the ship, with each officer applying his full bonus for his chosen specialty. The commander of the ship is now a jack of all trades, applying a portion of his bonus, while the specialists provide the larger bonuses. Larger ships get an advantage as they can afford the space to accommodate the specialists, while smaller ships have to make do with the commander handling everything at half efficiency. Any bonuses not mentioned here, such as reaction or production, will still be at full value for the commander. So, we have 5 new command and control modules. The cost of the bridge has been doubled and the role of the flag bridge has been changed. Each module adds 1 of the control ratings for the ship. First up, the bridge. 1 hull size of 50 tons costs 20 build points. The required rank for the commander is the racial minimum. Auxiliary control is 1 hull size and 15 build points, allows the assignment of an executive officer to the ship who will apply his full crew training bonus. And the required rank is 1 above the racial minimum. Science department is 2 hull size and 50 build points, allows the assignment of a science officer to the ship who will apply his full survey bonus. So this will obviously be used for survey ships, making them a little bit bigger and more expensive, but you get the full survey bonus. Main engineering is 3 hull size and 75 build points and allows the assignment of a chief engineer to the ship who will apply his engineering bonus to affect maintenance and damage control. The required rank for the commander is 2 above the racial minimum. Next, Combat Information Center. A CIC is 3 hull size and 75 BP, allows the assignment of a tactical officer to the ship who will apply his TAC bonus to various combat-related function. The required rank is 2 above racial minimum. Primary flight control is 4 hull size and 100 build points and allows the assignment of a command air group to the ship who applies full fighter operations bonus with 1 above racial minimum. And finally, flag bridge is 5 hull size and 125 build points. A fleet that includes a ship with a flag bridge can assign a fleet commander senior to the commander of the ship. If a fleet has multiple flag bridges, the most senior officer assigned to any of them will be the fleet commander. The fleet commander will improve the fleet's overall reaction rating by his reaction bonus. If there are no flag bridges, then the senior commander will be the de facto fleet commander, but his reaction bonus will not affect other ships. The required rank for the ship's commander for the ship with a flag bridge is to a racial minimum. There are no longer any task forces or staff officers. Any commander assigned to a flag bridge who is not the most senior in the fleet will be referred to as a flag officer. In cases where different control stations have different required ranks for the ship commander, the highest rank takes precedence. So, all in all, what this basically means is that a flag bridge is basically broken down into multiple components. A lot of the various bonuses that commanders have now require additional tonnage and build points, and ships now have multiple officers. Bit like Star Trek, really. So you got the main commander, who is the captain of the ship. You've got the executive officer who trains the crew. You've got the science officer who does the surveying themselves. You've got the chief of engineering who manages maintenance and damage control. You've got the tactical officer who does various combat stuff. I don't know if this has actually been fully revealed. Primary flight control. So you've got the fighter ops guy, and you have the flag bridge who provides his reaction bonus to all ships in the fleet. Now, because of how reaction bonus works, as we discussed yesterday, having a flag officer on every fleet is going to improve your overall fleet effectiveness, because you're going to get to go first. And going first is usually worse, because when you go first, they get to move and follow you. So, I don't know, we'll see how that works. But that is definitely a very big change that you're going to have to keep in mind for fleet design. Now, the officer can be killed if his station is damaged. There may also be added temporary promotions if the commander is killed, with the most senior surviving officer taking over as commander until relieved or promoted. So, like battlefield promotions. Except for the ship commander and the executive officer, the bonus from each specialist will only apply if their associated module is undamaged, and bonuses from the commander and XO will only apply if the ship has a control rating greater than 0. So they can command the ship from any of the surviving control spaces. Ships smaller than 1,000 tons automatically have a control rating of 1 even without a bridge, and this is to simulate that small ships do not require a dedicated centralized command function. Now, there's no plan to scale the modules to ship size or add extra crew. This would add extra complexity and make designing ships more difficult. For small ships, more command and control modules won't be used, and once you get past a certain size of ship, they will probably all be used. Now, I'm not going to about all be used because, a warship is never going to need to do any surveying. So I can hardly see a situation where you might need, for example, a carrier command and control, where you're going to need to reload fighters more effectively while also needing a science station, for example. But a lot of those stations are going to want to be included on most combat ships. But either way, there's not really an intent to make a choice as to whether a battleship would have a CIC or a main engineering, but rather to create meaningful choices for mid-range ships. So larger ships, of course, are going to have all of the various combat-related stations, but for a smaller ship, you might have to make an actual choice to shave down those extra tons. Although, personally, 50 tons here and there might not break the budget on anything larger than a couple of kilotons. For auto-assignment purposes, each ship class now has a specific rank requirement for its commander based on its command and control modules. The rank requirement for the XO, CAG, and science officers is 1 lower than for the ship commander. The rank requirement for the chief engineer and tactical officer is 2 lower than the ship commander. The rank requirement for a fleet commander is 1 higher than for the ship commander. So obviously the fleet commander is going to need to be a higher rank than the ship commander itself. And if chief of engineering is obviously not going to be as high ranked as the commander of the ship as a whole. Now you can manually assign higher ranked ship commanders and fleet commanders if desired, but other officers can only be assigned at the specified rank. The commander priority setting for each class of ship remains as before and is still set manually. It also applies to the other officer types as well. Order assignment works in the following order: class priority, survey ships by descending size, warships by descending PPV, unarmed military ships by descending size, construction ships by descending construction speed, terraformers by descending terraforming capacity, thorium harvesters by descending harvesting capacity, asteroid miners by descending mining capacity, salvage ships by descending salvage capacity. I'm beginning to see a pattern here. And all other ships, primarily freighters and colony ships, by descending size. So basically, the more effective something is at doing its job, the higher rank and the higher priority it has in getting auto assignment, which makes sense, with the class priority taking preference over everything else. Ship commanders will be assigned first, checking every category above, followed by executive officers, science officers, air group commanders, chief engineers, and tactical officers. The ships will cycle through in priority order, and commanders will be assigned if they meet the criteria for the ship type. These changes should make ship design more interesting, create better histories for commanders as they progress through different roles, and provide lots of potential roles for the junior commanders. Now, the most interesting thing is that commanders are not locked to a role. So any commander can fill any role. What this means is, as he mentions, create better histories for commanders. So you would have these new lieutenant commanders and stuff coming up, starting in the Navy, who are not going to be high enough rank to command their own ship. So they're the ones who are going to be allocated to, for example, chief engineer, or chief science officer, or CIC, or anything like that. And then as they get skilled up and they get promoted and they get higher rank, that is when they're going to get their own commission, they're going to get their crew, they're going to get their own ship, and then eventually might even be in charge of an entire fleet. So that is going to be pretty fantastic for roleplay, because you can find like one specific officer coming in and you can follow his story as he progresses and advances. Maybe he goes into a battle as a chief engineer and he pulls his ship together through a rough spot, and maybe most of his command crew dies. He gets promoted a couple times, and you'll be able to see that history as he gains promotions and medals. Medals are a fantastic thing. We'll cover that in the future when we get to it. But you'll be able to follow these officers as they progress through their career until, of course, their untimely demise at the hands of various alien creatures. But one can hope. And, hey, when they do die and meet their untimely demise, well, that's just another chapter in their story, isn't it? Even if it is the last one. But this is a very interesting change. This is one of the bigger changes in the game, and it is absolutely a fantastic one. It is just, Aurora is ultimately meant to be a roleplay simulator at the end of the day. And this is just such a juicy piece of roleplay, and it's just going to be fantastic. So, once again, I'm very much looking forward to these changes. Well, we are out of time, so that is it for today. Join me again tomorrow, where we will continue covering the changes for C# Aurora every day this month until launch. Down below, links to the official Aurora Discord, Reddit, and the forums where you can join the discussion and the hype. And I will see you next time.